Welcome to Non-Stop Christmas Stories, where holiday magic comes alive. From stories of love and laughter to unexpected miracles, we've gathered the best to fill your heart with Christmas cheer. Sit back, relax by the virtual fire, and get ready for a collection of heartwarming tales to brighten your holiday season. Now, let's dive into our first story and let the magic begin. In the heart of Winter Haven, a quaint village nestled between snow-capped mountains, Christmas was always magical. Icicles shimmered like jewels, lanterns glowed warmly in windows, and the scent of pine and cinnamon filled the air. But this year, everything felt different. A heavy snowstorm had cut Winter Haven off from the neighboring towns. Supplies were running low, and though the villagers tried to stay hopeful, they worried about how they would celebrate Christmas. The usual grand feast and vibrant festivities seemed impossible. Young Ella, though just 10 years old, was full of determination and hope. She believed Christmas wasn't just about feasts and gifts, but about bringing people together. She decided to act. Her best friend, Max, loved tinkering with gadgets, but even he was unsure when Ella shared her daring plan. Ella wanted to venture to the nearby mountain pass. Legends spoke of a magical cabin at the peak where the spirit of winter lived. Though it sounded like a fairy tale, Ella believed they could find help. Max hesitated, but Ella's unwavering optimism convinced him. They decided to use Max's invention, a sled with glowing runners powered by wind and heat. Though it had never been tested in such harsh conditions, they had no other choice. On Christmas Eve, under a pale moonlight, they set out on their glowing sled. The journey was treacherous. Snowdrifts were taller than the village's tallest pine, and the wind howled like a wild beast. But though the storm raged, their determination never faltered. The sled's glow lit their path, but even its warmth couldn't completely shield them from the cold. At last, they reached the mountain's crest. The cabin stood glowing, made entirely of ice and light. But though it looked magical, Ella and Max hesitated at the door, unsure if the legend was true. They stepped inside and found a kind old man with a flowing beard, his eyes sparkling like the northern lights. The spirit of winter listened as Ella and Max explained their village's plight. He was touched by their courage and selflessness, but he warned them, magic is not about ease. It must be used with care and love. With a wave of his hand, he gifted them a sack filled with enchanted snowflakes. These flakes will melt into joy, unity, and warmth, he said. But remember, the magic will only work if your hearts are true. As dawn broke on Christmas morning, Ella and Max returned to the village. Though exhausted, they immediately began sprinkling the enchanted snowflakes. The flakes melted into the air, spreading an invisible energy throughout Winter Haven. At first, nothing seemed to happen, but slowly, the villagers awoke to find tables filled with food, stockings stuffed with surprises, and an inexplicable sense of joy and unity. Neighbors gathered, though many had been distant or worried before. They laughed and shared stories by the fire. The snowstorm miraculously cleared, but what truly warmed their hearts was the togetherness they felt. Ella and Max smiled, knowing they had brought back not just Christmas, but a sense of hope. Though their journey had been perilous, their belief in kindness and love had made all the difference. From that day forward, the legend of the enchanted snowflakes became a cherished story in Winter Haven, reminding everyone that though times might be hard, the true magic of Christmas lies in the love and kindness we share. On Christmas Eve, Sarah, a little girl with rosy cheeks bundled in a red scarf, stood in her snowy backyard building a snowman. Though her hands were cold and trembling, she pressed a carrot into its face and stepped back. "But it's not done yet," she whispered, frowning as she realized something was missing. As she admired her snowman, a tall man in a long black coat appeared at the edge of the yard, holding a golden star in his hand. "You dropped this," he said, though Sarah didn't remember ever having it. "But it's not mine," she replied nervously. The man simply smiled and placed the star in her palm before disappearing into the swirling snow. Sarah stared at the star, which began to glow faintly in her hand. Though it was warm, she shivered with uncertainty. "But what do I do with it?" she asked aloud, looking around. The snowman seemed to shimmer in the starlight as if waiting for her decision. "But it's just a snowman," she murmured, placing the star on its chest anyway. Though she didn't expect anything to happen, the snowman's eyes sparkled, and its twig arms twitched to life. "Thank you," it said, its voice deep but kind. Sarah gasped. "You're alive?" The snowman pointed to the sky, where the clouds parted to reveal a single, brilliant star. "That's where I belong," he said, though his voice held a trace of sadness. "But will I see you again?" Sarah asked, tears brimming in her eyes. The snowman didn't answer, but as the star's light enveloped him, he smiled one last time before vanishing into the night. Left alone in the quiet yard, Sarah felt a strange warmth in her heart. "But it wasn't a dream," she whispered, gazing up at the star shining brightly above. Though tears glistened on her cheeks, she smiled and turned back toward the house, carrying the memory of her magical Christmas forever.
In a bustling city where Christmas lights adorned every corner, a young boy named Oliver lived in a small apartment with his mother. Times were tough, and though his mother worked tirelessly, there was barely enough for essentials, let alone gifts or decorations. Oliver loved Christmas, but this year, he had only one wish: to make his mother smile. She always said, the best gifts come from the heart, but Oliver didn't know how to make something meaningful with so little. One snowy evening, as Oliver wandered through the streets, he passed a small antique shop glowing warmly in the frosty air. The shopkeeper, a kindly old man with twinkling eyes, noticed Oliver staring at a tiny snow globe in the window. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" the man said, stepping outside. Oliver nodded. "It is, but I can't afford it. I just wanted something special for my mom." The shopkeeper smiled and handed Oliver the snow globe. Inside was a miniature Christmas village with tiny figures skating on a frozen pond. "Take it. This snow globe has a little magic in it. All it needs is someone with a kind heart to bring it to life." Oliver hesitated. "But I can't pay you." "Your wish for your mother's happiness is payment enough," the shopkeeper replied mysteriously. Clutching the snow globe, Oliver rushed home, eager to surprise his mother. That night, as the city slept, Oliver placed the snow globe on the table beside their modest tree. He whispered, "I wish for my mom to have the best Christmas ever." When morning came, Oliver was startled awake by his mother's laughter. He rushed to the living room and stopped in his tracks. The tiny snow globe on the table glowed softly, casting shimmering light across the walls. Inside, the figures in the miniature Christmas village were moving. Tiny skaters twirled on the frozen pond, children built snowmen, and the small houses lit up as if welcoming visitors. His mother gazed at it, her eyes wide with wonder. "Oliver, how? It's beautiful." Oliver smiled shyly. "It's a gift for you, Mom. I wanted to make you happy this Christmas." Tears welled up in her eyes as she pulled Oliver into a warm hug. "You've given me the most magical Christmas ever, Oliver. Thank you." They spent the day together, marveling at the glowing snow globe, singing carols, and sharing stories by the fire. Though they had little, their home was filled with love and joy. And as the snow fell quietly outside, Oliver knew he'd given his mother more than a gift. He'd brought her happiness, and that was the best Christmas of all.
In the frosty town of Snow Point, nestled among shimmering pines and glistening snow, Christmas was the most magical time of the year. Lights twinkled, carols echoed through the streets, and the scent of warm cookies filled the air. But high above, in a dark, frosty cave atop Mount Gloom, lived Grinchwick, a grouchy, green creature who despised Christmas more than anything. No one knew why Grinchwick hated Christmas. Some said his heart was 2 sizes too small. Others whispered it was because he'd never been invited to the town's festive gatherings. Whatever the reason, Grinchwick couldn't stand the joyful sounds of Christmas cheer that reached his cave every year. One chilly Christmas Eve, as Snow Point bustled with last-minute preparations, Grinchwick decided he'd had enough. "I'll stop Christmas from coming," he snarled. He stitched a red suit, tied antlers to his dog, Max, and hitched up a sled. With a bag in hand, he set out to steal everything that made Christmas special. Grinchwick slinked down chimneys, snatched presents, stuffed stockings into his sack, and even stole the roast feast from the dinner tables. By dawn, his sled was piled high, and he grinned wickedly. No Christmas for them this year, he cackled, hauling his loot toward the summit of Mount Gloom. As the sun rose, Grinchwick expected cries of despair. Instead, he heard singing. The people of Snow Point had gathered, hand in hand, to sing joyous carols. They were celebrating Christmas despite Grinchwick's mischief. Grinchwick was stunned. Maybe Christmas doesn't come from a store, he thought. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. At that moment, his heart grew 3 sizes, and he felt a warmth he'd never known before. Rushing down the mountain, Grinchwick brought back every stolen item. "I'm sorry," he said, handing out gifts and decorations. The townspeople welcomed him with open arms, inviting him to join their feast. From that day on, Grinchwick became a beloved member of Snow Point. Every Christmas, he decorated his cave, hosted parties, and carved the roast feast with a grin as wide as his heart. And so, the Grinch, once a lonely grouch, learned the true meaning of Christmas: love, kindness, and community.
In a snowy city, 12-year-old Clara lived with her grandmother in a tiny apartment. This Christmas was unlike the rest. No presents, no decorations, just a bare tree and quiet wishes. Clara longed to make the season special for her grandmother, who worked so hard despite their struggles. One evening, Clara was sent to the attic to fetch blankets. Amid the dust, she found a wooden box engraved with stars and snowflakes. Inside was a shimmering lantern. As she touched it, golden light filled the attic, and a gentle voice spoke, "I am the Christmas light, granting magic to those with kind hearts." Clara whispered, "Can it make my grandmother happy?" "Yes, but its magic lasts for one night. Use it wisely." She brought the lantern downstairs. Instantly, their bare tree blossomed with ornaments and lights. The dining table filled with a feast, and warmth spread through the room. When her grandmother entered, tears filled her eyes. "Clara, how?" "It's magic, Grandma," Clara said with a smile. Neighbors, drawn by the lantern's glow, soon joined them. Laughter and kindness filled the apartment, turning their small home into the heart of the neighborhood. At midnight, the lantern dimmed, its magic complete, leaving behind a lasting warmth. Her grandmother hugged her tightly. "This is the best Christmas ever." Clara smiled, realizing the true magic wasn't in the lantern, but in the love they shared.
In the small town of Winter Haven, nestled deep in a snow-covered valley, the townsfolk eagerly awaited Christmas every year. Their tradition was unique. Each family would place a golden star atop their Christmas tree as a sign of hope and unity. However, one year, the town faced an especially harsh winter. crops failed, and many families could not afford their usual festive decorations. Little Emma, an 8-year-old girl with curly blonde hair and sparkling blue eyes, noticed the sadness around her. She decided to write a letter to Santa Claus, asking for one special wish. Dear Santa, this year, many people in Winter Haven are sad. Can you help us bring back the joy of Christmas? I don't need toys, just a little magic for everyone. Love, Emma. Emma placed the letter by her windowsill, believing the wind would carry it to Santa. And indeed, it did. High in the North Pole, Santa's workshop buzzed with activity. When Santa read Emma's letter, his eyes twinkled with determination. On Christmas Eve, as the townsfolk prepared for a quiet night, a soft jingle echoed through Winter Haven. Santa's sleigh soared across the sky, leaving trails of golden stardust. The next morning, every home awoke to find a golden star shimmering atop their trees. But these weren't ordinary stars. They glowed warmly, filling each home with light and joy. The townsfolk gathered in the square, their hearts brimming with happiness. Santa had not only delivered stars, but also restored their hope. They sang carols under the starlit sky, knowing the spirit of Christmas was alive and well. And from that day on, Winter Haven became known as the town of golden stars, a place where magic and kindness thrived, all thanks to a little girl's wish and Santa's timeless generosity. In a quiet town blanketed by fresh snow, young Alex stared out the frosted window of his small home. He loved Christmas, but this year was different. His father, a railway engineer, was working far away and wouldn't make it back in time. Don't be sad, Alex, his mother said, setting a cup of hot cocoa beside him. Christmas is about believing in miracles. Alex nodded half-heartedly, sipping his cocoa. He wanted to believe her, but it was hard. As he watched the snow falling outside, he noticed something strange. A faint golden light flickered near the railway tracks that ran by their house. Curious but slightly nervous, Alex approached the tracks. He gasped. A magnificent train gleamed in the moonlight, unlike any he had seen before. Its cars were painted deep red with golden trim, and its wheels sparkled like diamonds. Steam puffed softly into the cold night air, and at the front of the train stood a conductor dressed in a green uniform with a silver whistle. "Welcome aboard the Christmas Express," the conductor called out with a warm smile. "The Christmas Express?" Alex echoed, wide-eyed. "It's a special train that travels only on Christmas Eve," the conductor explained. "It takes passengers wherever they need to go, but only if their hearts hold a wish." Alex hesitated, but then climbed aboard. Though he wasn't sure what to expect, the train seemed safe, and his curiosity outweighed his fear. The inside of the train was magical. It was decorated with garlands, twinkling lights, and candy canes. As the train rolled along, Alex's heart felt lighter. He told the conductor about his wish to see his father. "We'll see what the Christmas Express can do," the conductor said, winking. The train made many stops, each one magical. It passed through forests glittering with ice crystals, crossed over rivers that sparkled like silver, and even climbed to the top of snowy mountains where reindeer pranced in the moonlight. But Alex kept thinking of his father. He wanted to enjoy the journey, but his longing for his dad was stronger. Finally, the train slowed as it approached a small, snowy station. Though the platform was quiet at first glance, Alex noticed a familiar figure standing under a lantern. It was his father, wearing his railway uniform and carrying a bag of presents. Alex's eyes filled with tears, but he didn't hesitate. He leapt into his father's arms. "How did you get here?" his father asked, laughing and hugging him tight. "The Christmas Express," Alex said, pointing to the train. But when they turned, the train had vanished, leaving only the faint sound of a whistle echoing through the air. Alex and his father returned home together, their hearts full of joy. That Christmas was the best one yet, but Alex never forgot the magical train that brought his family together. Far up in the snowy wonderland of the North Pole, Santa Claus was preparing for his busiest night of the year. The elves had worked tirelessly in the workshop, the reindeer were groomed and ready to fly, and the sleigh was packed with gifts for children all around the world. But this Christmas Eve, something unexpected happened. Just as Santa was reviewing his route, a small elf named Jingle ran up to him, holding a glowing scroll. "Santa, we have a problem," Jingle panted, catching his breath. "A terrible blizzard is sweeping across the northern hemisphere. The radar shows it's stronger than any storm we've ever seen." Santa furrowed his brow. "Blizzards or not, Christmas must go on," he said firmly. "We'll need to be extra careful and maybe a little creative." He summoned his head reindeer, Rudolph. "Your bright nose will be our guiding light tonight, more than ever. Are you ready, my friend?" Rudolph nodded, his nose glowing brighter than ever, determined to lead the way. As the sleigh soared through the skies, the storm roared fiercely. Wind howled, snow swirled, and visibility was nearly zero. Santa's usual cheer was tested, but he stayed focused, calling out addresses to the reindeer and delivering presents wherever they could land. Then, just as they approached a small village tucked in a remote valley, the sleigh hit a snag. The storm's winds knocked them off course, and they landed softly in a snowbank. Santa chuckled, brushing snow off his red suit. "Well, looks like we're walking this one." Carrying his sack of toys, Santa trudged through the snow with Rudolph by his side. They reached the village, where the lights were dim and the streets were silent. Santa discovered that the storm had caused a power outage, leaving the children without their usual Christmas cheer. Inspired, Santa gathered the villagers in the town square. "Christmas is about more than just lights and presents," he said. "It's about kindness, togetherness, and hope." With Rudolph lighting the way, Santa and the villagers worked together to light candles, sing carols, and share food and stories. He even baked cookies with the villagers, using an old wood-fired oven. By morning, the storm had passed, and the village sparkled under a blanket of fresh snow. The children awoke to find their stockings filled and their spirits lifted, thanks to Santa's determination and the magic of community. As Santa climbed back into his sleigh, he smiled and called out, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night." And so, Santa and Rudolph finished their journey, proving that even in the face of the fiercest storm, the true spirit of Christmas shines through. Sophie was a young girl who often found herself staring out the frosted window of her small apartment, watching the bustling world outside. Her days felt monotonous, and the joy of the holiday season seemed distant and unreachable. One evening, as snow gently blanketed the streets, Sophie decided to take a walk through the Christmas market. The air was filled with the aroma of roasted chestnuts and the sound of cheerful carolers. Lights twinkled above her, and the crowd bustled around, but Sophie wandered alone. As she explored, her eyes were drawn to a small, tucked-away stall where an old vendor sat among an assortment of trinkets. Among them was a beautifully intricate snow globe. The tiny glass world inside sparkled as if alive, with a swirling winter scene that seemed almost magical. "You like it?" the vendor asked, his warm smile lighting up his wrinkled face. "It's beautiful," Sophie replied, mesmerized. "To spread some happiness, I'd like you to have it," the vendor said, placing the snow globe in her hands. Before she could protest, he winked and said, "It's meant for you." Sophie thanked him and hurried home, clutching the globe close. Back in her room, she set the globe on her desk and stared at it, lost in thought. Suddenly, the globe began to glow faintly, its light growing stronger with each passing moment. Before Sophie could react, the light filled the room, and a portal appeared right before her eyes. Her heart raced, but curiosity overcame her fear. Stepping into the portal, Sophie found herself in a magical forest filled with shimmering trees and sparkling snow. The air buzzed with an otherworldly energy, and a path of glowing stones led her forward. Following the path, Sophie arrived at a majestic icicle castle that gleamed like a frozen gem. Inside, the air was cool but comforting, and at the center of the grand hall sat a figure on a crystalline throne. The figure was cloaked in silvery light, its face kind but mysterious. "You've brought the globe," the figure said in a melodic voice. "This world's magic is fading, and only the globe's power can restore it. But it needs you, Sophie. Your heart, your hope, it's what fuels its magic." Sophie hesitated, unsure of what to do. "But I'm just me," she said. The figure smiled gently. "That's all it takes. Believe in the joy you can bring." Gathering her courage, Sophie raised the globe high. Its light grew brighter and brighter, illuminating the entire castle with a warm, radiant glow. The magic seemed to pulse through the air, stronger than ever before. When the light faded, Sophie found herself back in her room, the snow globe sitting calmly on her desk. She looked around, half expecting the portal to reappear, but everything was still. For the first time in what felt like forever, Sophie smiled. Her heart felt full, and the joy of the moment stayed with her. The snow globe had brought her more than magic. It had brought her happiness and hope.
In a snowy village, Ellie wrote to Santa with a heartfelt request. "Dear Santa, I don't want toys this year. Please help my grandpa smile again." Her grandpa, once the best toy maker in town, had been sad ever since his beloved workshop closed due to tough times. He tried to stay cheerful for Ellie, but the emptiness of the workshop weighed on his heart. On Christmas Eve, as Ellie gazed out the window, she saw a golden sleigh land in her yard. She could hardly believe her eyes, but out stepped Santa Claus, his eyes twinkling like stars. "Ellie," he said warmly, "I received your letter, and I think I can help." Together, they walked to the old workshop. Santa waved his hand, and the dark, dusty room transformed. Shelves filled with tools, paints, and unfinished toys. The air hummed with magic, but the sight of the once busy workshop now quiet brought a lump to Ellie's throat. Grandpa appeared in the doorway, his face a mix of surprise and wonder. "Santa," he whispered. Santa handed Ellie a glowing golden bell. "Ring this at sunrise, and the magic will do the rest. But remember, it's not just about magic, it's about the love and support of your community." At dawn, Ellie rang the bell, and soon villagers gathered outside. They were curious but hopeful as they looked at the workshop. "Is the workshop reopening?" someone asked eagerly. Grandpa hesitated, but Ellie held his hand and smiled. "Yes," he said finally. "With all of you, we can make toys and memories again." Grandpa's smile returned as he crafted toys, surrounded by the warmth of friends and family. As Ellie looked out the window that night, she saw Santa's sleigh streaking across the sky. She waved and whispered, "Thank you, Santa." From that day on, the workshop became more than a place to make toys. It became the heart of the village, filled with love, joy, and the true spirit of Christmas.
Thank you for joining me on this journey through these wonderful stories. Each tale reminds us of the true spirit of the season, kindness, love, and the magic of togetherness. As we close, I want to take a moment to express my gratitude to you for watching and sharing these moments with me. Wishing you and your loved ones a joyous holiday season. Which story resonated with you the most? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments.